Here at the Dreaming Machine podcast, we've discovered the secrets of time travel.
And after rigorous discussion of the most ethical ways to make use of this power, clearly the only logical option was letting one of us pitch a show to the other and then jumping ahead in time and finding out what they thought of it.
In each episode, one of us will pitch a cartoon to someone who's never seen it before. We'll then jump forward in time after the person's seen the cartoon for themselves to immediately find out their reaction. Welcome to The Time Traveller's Pitch. Hi everyone, this is Joe.
And this is Amy. And today I'm going to be introducing Joe to Frieren. So no Frieren. Do you know anything about this show, Joe?
It's basically no. Like, it seems to be a big deal. Like, it seems to have a really big fan base. Is it? It sounds fair to say, but very little. No.
Okay, well. So, how do you feel about fantasy shows?
Fantasy is good. I really like fantasy shows. Yes.
Do you like the magic?
I especially like the magic. Yes.
Excellent, excellent. So, this show follows the adventures of specifically one member of a party of heroes after their adventure ends.
So after the adventure ends, that's interesting already. Okay.
Yeah. So the show picks up at the end of their adventure as they all part and go their separate ways, and we see the point of view character for it, who is Frieren, the elf. And she's the member of the party who's like the least connected to all the others. She's like, oh, we went on this big adventure for 10 years. It was only 10 years.
So the casual acquaintance of the group, maybe, or?
Well, that's how she sees it. And of course, as we learn through the rest of that episode, this attitude leads to a few issues with her and how she ends up feeling when she comes back to see them again.
And did you say it was 10 years? The adventure, like, is that epic? That long?
Yeah, they were on a 10-year adventure to slay the Demon King, and they succeeded and they saved the world.
Wow, and she still doesn't feel connected. Okay, I mean, this is a really interesting setup already. I'll let you tell me a little more, but yeah.
So as they watch the meteor shower happening, as they're at the festivities celebrating them as the heroes, Frieren points out she knows a better place where you can see the meteor shower better, and she'll take them next time. The meteor shower is once every 40 years, I believe.
So she'll take them next time, as in next time there's a cataclysmic event, or just when the
No,
meteor...
next time the meteor shower happens.
Right, okay. Like in 40 years.
The next time it happens, she'll take them to see it. And so they all say their goodbyes, and she goes off to carry on just doing her thing, studying magic, getting better at it, as she's been doing all her life.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all like, yeah, we'll all keep in touch. So 40 years later, she remembers that she promised to go and show them next time the meteor shower happens. And she shows up. Now, 40 years to an elf isn't much time at all. The rest of her party are not elves.
Are they still alive, the rest of her party?
Yes, for now. But it's at this point that she starts to realize how she feels about all of this. And that's where the sort of real hook of the show kicks in, because it's all about how she processes all of this and how she learns to change in response to it.
Okay, so I think there's quite a few things going on from the setup in terms of it being after the main adventure. Like that's an interesting choice.
Hmm.
In terms of being together for 10 years but not feeling connected, like that's strange but interesting. And then this whole like 40-year it's kind of that, that classic let's meet here in a certain time and see where we are kind of thing. Except one of them's like, if not immortal, like very long living elf.
Hmm.
So it's just lots of interesting dynamics there, and it also sounds a bit more like a character study based on what you just described.
Yes. So the show is very much about its characters and about their relationships, um, and about how they learn to relate to each other. Um, it's probably no surprise that some of the characters do not survive the first episode.
Okay.
Um, but that's how we get into the introduction of the other characters of the show and how Frieren tries to learn from this experience and grow herself.
And I imagine there'll be like some kind of new threat then, and some like action, like story thing happening too. Is that fair to say?
So, so it's quite a slow burn story, which gives it a lot of time to do that. That sort of character growth and build up the understanding of who the characters in it are and develop their relationships and understanding of each other. And I think that works quite well. But it does have overarching threads. And one of the really, really nice things I've noticed is you can you can look at things that are significant. That there was one item that shows up in an episode halfway through the show, and I was like, huh. And when I went back and rewatched the first episode of the show, that item is actually shown for one brief scene in that first episode. It's just a fleeting glimpse of it, but you realize there were so many things were being set up early on. The magic system as well, and like how Frieren uses her magic and how she's teaching her apprentice to, all of that becomes really significant later on, and it's all a clear flow from one thing to the next.
I love that kind of like where they build in things for the later that you don't realize at the time, and you think, oh, how clever, like how interesting, as an aside. So I really like that kind
Yeah.
of little touch. Um,
And then, of course, there's just the fact that the very original title of it, the Susuno Frieren, is a delightful bit of Japanese wordplay that they didn't really translate to the English title.
which I can understand because there's such a language barrier, and a lot of geeky people might like Google that kind of thing anyway, I
I can
guess.
think of a way you would do it. I can think of a way you would do it, but to say it might give the game away. So,
Intriguing. Uh,
and it's a pretty cool reveal later on.
I mean, that's really helpful. So I got a rough idea of the story and characters, and yeah, I wouldn't want any major spoilers or anything. So that's cool. I guess like my main other question would be about just to get a rough vibe for the feel of the show, like tonally, is it yeah, because
Tonally,
yeah.
it's quite emotional, but at the same time has some really nice comedy to it. Like it's very light-hearted, but serious when it needs to be.
Okay. I can get behind that. That makes sense.
It's a story where you probably will find yourself caring quite a bit about the characters. but at the same time, you will have a good time with some of the running gags in it.
Okay, this sounds really intriguing. Like, I think that kind of you've definitely made me very curious, and I do want to check it all out. Um, I guess, is there anything else I need to know going in, or anything you wanted to highlight, or is that a good, or
Hmm.
am I well primed?
I don't think I think any more I give you might spoil too much of it. That is really a delight to actually experience.
This is fantastic.
I've basically
Mm.
told you the plot of half of the first episode by now, so
Yeah, we don't want to do any. Yeah, I'm totally with you. Like, avoid spoilers. So that's cool. You give me a really that's great. You've made me very intrigued. I'm excited to try it out. Um, yeah, it does sound like a show where the story development and what happens like is part of that fun and excitement. So I'm looking forward to it.
and the same with the characters. So that's a thing because I can't really talk about all of the main characters
Mm,
because they don't even all get introduced until the halfway point of the first season.
intriguing. Hmm.
I did mention it's very slow burn, but I think it's well worth it for where it gets to.
Okay. That sounds good. Well, I mean, I'm gonna enjoy my life like in normal time, watching these shows. Whilst Amy,
I'm going to hop into the future.
you're sacrificing a whole chunk of your life to find out my reaction.
Ah, you could say I'm experiencing life more like Frieren does.
There we go. That's nice.
Mm.
So, um, good luck on your time travel journey. I look forward to seeing you again in the future.
It'll only be a short adventure.
Wow, Amy, you've made it here.
I have
It's several
indeed.
weeks since I've seen you. Was your journey okay? Were you safe?
Well, I mean, my trip went safely, but I just couldn't wait the entire time it would take you to watch this.
Well, yes, and okay. Here's my initial reaction. I love it. It's a fantastic show. I'm so delighted you've introduced me to it. That's my general reaction.
Isn't it amazing, though?
It's amazing. When I remember to a few weeks ago, I think I was intrigued by your pitch because of the setup of the show, where it starts after the adventures ended. That was one of the main
Hmm.
hooks. Then the other hook was about the main character like living far longer than their compatriots and the kind of dynamics that throws up. So those two things were interesting, and I'm kind of was looking for a new fantasy show, a new anime in general. But
Yeah,
beyond, and those things are great, but it's just a really great show. It feels. I'll go into this in more detail, but it just feels really different in its pacing, in its kind of character choices, what happens in the plot, the direction choices. It just feels really different from a lot of other shows I'm seeing.
yeah.
Um, and that's what's really jumped out for me actually in general.
It's thoughtful and it's also funny.
It's very funny, and that comes from there's some like clever plot turns that make that funny. But Frieren herself is a fascinating, very contrary character. And she's like a puzzle you're trying to work out the entire like. So I've seen like about half of the first like season so far, um, and she is like a puzzle you're constantly trying to work out, and but she's not like she's kind of aloof in a way, but not in a like well, I know it's a cartoon, but not a cartoonish way, like not a shallow way, because there's elements of warmth. Like it's more like a challenge for her to communicate in a traditional way. So I think like,
Yeah,
but also the other characters are great too. Like I've got a shout outs here for like Fern's a great character, and she's a great foil to Frieren.
absolutely.
Her new apprentice like is a great foil, and like questions like the poor choices and the poor teaching practices Frieren does. And then
But
the
is it poor teaching practices though?
well, like, on the surface, but of course it's not. She's actually a great teacher.
Yeah,
Um,
it's the depth that you see unfurling.
but Stark's an amazing character who we'll talk more about in the spoiler based discussion later. So this is a spoiler free reaction.
Absolutely.
But Stark's a great character, and there's a lot of humor there. But also like her original adventuring gang. I mean, Ison really stood out for me. Like his character
Yeah.
design and his like depth of knowledge and like how wise he is, but kind of humorous as well at the same time.
Hmm.
But it's just like it's just one of the strangest shows I've seen. So it happens after the main adventures, all those things I talked about before. But it's like halfway through the first episode, it's this incredible amount of pathos and like emotional impact, which the show has no right to have when it's like 10 minutes into this brand new
It
show. It's
absolutely has not earned it, and yet,
Yeah, it does. It's incredible, and it's like it's a kind of moment you would have at the end of a fourth season of a show. It's absolutely bizarre. Like, and the direction throughout, the choice of shot is like fantastic, like
hmm,
frequently and very different. And like you'll have a montage, like there'll be like moments that are like, you know, is an adventuring party. What happens after the adventure ends? That is kind of a trope in and of itself in a way,
hmm,
and the kind of characters they are like that. There are certain tropes it plays around with, and it has a montage in, but then it'll just do a fresh spin on it.
hmm.
So
On
like,
s- oh, on
yeah, go ahead.
some of what you said there about the shots and the very deliberateness of some of them, you won't have noticed all of them, but there are some tiny, almost incidental shots of things that then are really significant later,
Mm.
but that are perfectly paced in it that you don't really notice the significance until they come up, which also happens with a lot of the writing.
Yeah, I mean the writing's great. Like it's one of the like I love anime. I do really enjoy it. Some anime, which might partly be the translation, partly maybe the type of anime I'm watching, I don't know, but can be a bit cheesy or
Mm,
slightly exposition heavy or a bit clunky in the writing. This is really well written, I think, this show. And like just something in the direction, like I made a couple some notes here, like there's like one really small moment I noticed, like just when a couple of those side characters I mentioned like sit down on a stool and the camera just sits like stool height as it sits on it and like focuses on that detail. It focuses on
mm,
like weird details you don't expect. But there's some shots of like real like beauty as well. Like the end of episode 6 when there's a shot of their faces as they're leaving this location and these like colored like confetti leaves like thing like float in the forefront of the
mm.
screen. And it's just like lovely and very clever and it's just like it's imaginative to think of that. They don't just do things by numbers, they're really thinking about like each and every shot and the way it's put together. um
Yeah.
Reminded me of like certain film directors in that kind of way, and
Mm,
so I think that's all really good. So it's kind of like a standard fantasy show that's not a standard fantasy show and has a very contrary like main character who you'll just be working out the whole time, and it's kind of exactly. As I know I sound very positive in my phrase, but it's not. I really am enjoying it, as you can tell, and
yeah.
it's kind of the show. I was looking for a show like this. I was looking for this kind of show, like definitely.
I'm so glad then. Really glad I found something that has clicked with you so well.
I really want to talk about spoilerful stuff. Um,
Well, we've been going about 10 minutes, so
so this is a massive spoiler warning for everyone listening in. But if you have not seen the show, and hence why you need that spoiler warning, please do check it out. Um, so let's go into spoilers, 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 spoilers.
you've
Right.
been so itching to get this out.
Well, let's go through it in order. Like, there's a lot of stuff. So the first episode, the the funeral scene, and
Mm,
what happens to the main party. Like, he's kind of signposted this will happen, but it's still like incredibly like emotional and powerful the way it does happen for these characters you've just met.
yeah.
And there's constant allusions to them throughout the season. And but the funeral scene's like really well written and directed. It's like it's really sad, but it's not just an onslaught of misery. It's like like there's a bit of humor there as well, and there's a bit of like standing back from things, getting that perspective. Like it's kind of complex and full of pathos and
I tell you what an interesting thing about it is. Like, you as the viewer don't have that attachment to the characters at this point in the story. And I think that's actually like possibly makes Frieren slightly more relatable in that moment as she's realizing her own issues with that connection and what
yeah,
she's feeling in that moment at the funeral.
100%. I think that's a great comment, and you kind of see that theme occur throughout several episodes. I think there's like she Fiona like talks in a later episode about how she seems disinterested like in this situation and says like, oh, it's just 100th of my life really.
Yeah.
And then I think it might be Ison who responds. He says well, it's only 100th of your life, but what an impact that 100th of your life has had. Is
Mm.
that tension because these 10 years did have a massive impact on her, and she maybe loath to admit it, but she is developing these connections. Her relationship with her like mother, essentially her mother character, is very com-
Essentially her mother character.
it's very complicated and multifaceted, but not in a overly negative or harsh way that like other shows would do. It's just like
Mm.
so that is that kind of theme about what life means to Frieren and what life means to her party are going with her. They if Frieren stops in a place for like a few years to find these flowers or whatever, I think that was one of the subplots. Then it's like several years of these other people's lives, and
Yeah.
and and what but do you need that kind of goal and what you're trying and then you find out the flowers have extra meaning later on in the series as well, which gives another spin on it when you thought it was just it's because she's not quite immortal but essentially immortal, like lives far longer, she can do this kind of stuff, but actually it does mean something to her with her mother, her mother figure.
You're really big on this mother figure. I was like seeing her largely less as a maternal figure and more as a like just like an incredible like mentor who
But this is the thing. The show lets us work that out, doesn't it? Lets us
mm,
interpret it that way. It doesn't just tell us like,
mm, mm,
and that's what's great. It says it's a great character drama, but it like lets you work it out and gives you the
mm.
pieces.
It
And you,
it does make you question if part of why she's so reluctant to have those kinds of bonds with people is because of the fact that the first really important person in her life like that had such a short lifespan compared to her.
yeah,
And like for her, within a few decades, she'd already like lived longer without her than she had with her.
very Well, potentially that's true. I mean, I'm not willing to say yes or no because it's like it's so open to that interpretation, but potentially. But you
So
can't.
it could very much be a case that she really didn't want to feel that again,
It's about protecting herself,
that
maybe
kind of loss. Hmm.
that kind of protection for sure. And but that's kind of like there's other moments like her relationship with her new apprentice, um, Fern, and
Her and Fern are brilliant. They have so many amazing scenes.
like, I mean, Fern doesn't take any crap, does she? She like that. That's an important part of their dynamic. But also, she has a conflict about how she sees her, and she she talks about the difference in like how long they live and how she's not very warm in some ways, but then Frieren gives her like a gift every year, and like the
And
significance
then
of that.
in other ways, like Fern is the more mature of the two in a lot of situations.
Yes, that's true. I think that's a very good point, actually. Yeah, uh, and the kind of so it's a great character study, and I mean, I can watch any kind of character study like that. I enjoy it. I enjoy that kind of
Mm,
thing, but it's also what it does ally it to quite a compelling plot and compelling stories, and it's it's quite an easy watch at the same time. I think, like
yeah,
even early on before the main plot kind of kicks in, you've got this just her train like Fern training and trying to become a better mage is kind of I found that really fascinating, and then
yeah.
understanding like the task of being left behind by Haita um, is like really interesting. There's a lot of stuff going on that it plants like seeds and it has relatively quick resolutions to things. So it's quite watchable as well, while still having that depth and being a slower show in
Yeah.
some ways too.
And the focus in how Frieren is teaching Fern, I love how you have the steady build to the significance of it, um, and like to why Frieren is as good as she is, like, and how she doesn't focus on big flashy magic or anything particularly special. She will always use the simplest spell for the task.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's another interesting thing there about the use of magic and
Hmm.
their enjoyment of it as well. Um, because
She
there's
loves
almost
collecting spells.
she does, but there's also a conflict there in that there's questions and it comes up in the flashbacks about does she actually enjoy doing magic? Um, and that comes up for Fern as well. Like, are they actually enjoying what they're doing? Are they enjoying the journey as well as
Hmm.
the destination they're trying to reach? Which which is a hugely important question for everyone.
I think it's pretty clear that Frieren, with Frieren, with her finding more magic and learning more magic, I think it's quite clear that a lot of the stuff with her is more about the journey than the destination. And I think it's her learning to map that onto her relationships with people as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's really true, and I think but yeah, Fern is like a great like wise head on young shoulders, really, and like
Mm.
I think like her like wrestling with that conflict a bit and what she's trying to achieve like is interesting as well. Um,
I'm very interested to see where Fern goes by later in the series because we're actually going through time at quite a rate if you look at the dates in some of the episodes.
it's that's another like thing that felt really different. Like I remember like it was the first and second episode. There was like a montage, and I thought, um, okay, like standard montage, like a good montage for like this has been done before. Oh wait, we've jumped ahead 5 years. Like it's just like it's the way it jumps forward, well, is kind of crazy. Like how much it does that. It's fascinating, and it just keep you on your toes.
Mm. But
Like
once they set off on the quest as well, and you see, you just see every few episodes, you see the year tick up in the corner. You're like, oh wait, they have been on this for a year now, and it is going to take them a decade to do this quest.
yeah, yeah, and how do you reconcile that?
What are all
Um,
those characters going to be like by the end of it?
like will Fern love magic once she's been through that journey and like learn to?
Oh, I think Fern will absolutely love magic.
Hmm. It's like I mean into that like timescale like in episode 4 there's this transition of Ice and praying and it jumps ahead like literally like 30 years or something to him praying now like in the
Mm,
current timeline and I wrote down like that like it's full of pay like, it's really interesting and it's full of significance and like I wrote down like live action should copy this like it's such a brilliant shot and it kind of sums up like those themes
yeah.
and things. It's um like someone should like the shots and themes like that like other shows should really copy. I think like in
Mm,
a nice way. And there's just some great dialogue about that's the first episode where it's been over 1,000 years and here I am dancing in the palm of my master's hand and then Ison's asking Fern about at this point it's the first most overt dialogue they've had about each of their motivations and like what's driving Frieren to help Fern understand Frieren better. Um, so yeah, no, that's all great. I mean, there's also being a spoiler full section. We should really mention the Dragon Slayer.
ha. I mean, before we get to that, I just with your mention of the ice and stuff, I really love the Ison and Haita stuff.
Oh, for sure, it's great, isn't it?
They're fantastic characters, and I like the amount of time we do get with them. Um, they're just really good characters, and I love their interactions with Frieren.
It's kind of interactions with Frieren are great. I think it's kind of like loving, but kind of like jibing and like teaching her as well at the same time, like about
Mm,
and like recognizing her weaknesses and strengths. Like it is like really interesting, like kind of family bond, and
mm-hmm.
which is why that 100th of a life has had more significance. And like, but that original four adventuring crew that we keep flashing back to, are such great, distinct but multifaceted characters, and but likable and funny as well. And I think the flashbacks work really well in this show because they're just well planned and they further your knowledge without over explaining it. I think that's what I
I
enjoy about the show.
Yeah, I think the weakest one that takes the longest to get more fleshed out is probably Himmel, but that's because obviously he's the one we don't get as much time with at the beginning.
I mean, at the moment I'm okay with that because I think he's an interesting puzzle as well to an
Mm.
extent. I mean, when you see him training Stark, and like overstepping the line in one moment and his reflections on that, I found
No,
that
no, I
quite.
was saying about Himmel rather than Ison.
Oh, sorry, Himmel.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. He is a bit. Yeah, we don't know much about him yet. That's true. That's true.
yeah, there's a lot less about him, which is of course necessary for the setup.
Yeah,
Like we get less time with him.
it's. But like it's quite early days for me. I know you've seen a bit more of the show, but
I
like
have, yeah.
so.
But he's someone who needs more fleshing out in those flashbacks rather than those contemporary scenes.
Yeah, That
whereas Haito and Ison get a lot more of that.
I think that's a fair point. Actually, I think that's true. But but yeah, for sure. Like, I think so it's a great show, but it also like made me like laugh a lot as well, especially like episode 5 with
Oh,
the
it's so funny.
like with this twist about this amazing dragon slayer, and you find out he's a total coward who's all about self-preservation, and he just felt a bit embarrassed to explain that he wasn't really this great dragon slayer, and it was too late by that point, and I just thought that's such a great it's a
But
great
then
yeah.
then it turns out like the dragon sized him up and it knew it couldn't win that fight.
Well, this is like the unpredictable bit of the show, so it has like a funny moment like that, but then it's not just like you don't just play out that like flaw of his character. You find out from Himmel that actually no, there is a reason why I've picked him.
From Ison.
I
You
was
keep getting those two confused.
say you find apologies. You find out from Ison that there is a reason his character got that he got picked as to be his apprentice and learn from him. But it's the reason that Stark doesn't even quite realize himself, kind of thing. So there's like another twist, an extra layer that they reveal.
Yeah.
But yeah, that scene was really like funny though and worked really well. Um,
You still aren't far enough to have met the entire party yet.
in, but as I said, like, I'm really enjoying it.
Quick question.
Mhm.
How did you feel at the reveal of the double meaning behind the name of the series? That was a really smart bit of Japanese wordplay.
Yeah, I think it's got quite a lot of these as you said before these it knows what the show knows what it's doing with these like little reveals and like
Well, I
Easter
mean
eggs.
that was from the manga, that bit.
Yeah. Um, which you can kind of tell it's adapted from a manga, can't you? Like in terms of like those like very specific plot points and the description and and the shots like seem very like
Well, I just in the nature of like the serialization of the story.
yeah. But it works brilliantly, I think. Um,
It does a nice little bit, like that nice little bit that you get with quite a few series where you have essentially like the establishing shot at the start of a bit, which is exactly what you would get from the first page of a chapter in a book.
yeah, the show has a nice theme with that, doesn't it? And a
Mm,
nice continuity, I think, and that it just looks nice as well. Like it feels like you're delving
yeah,
into this epic tale, like at a certain point.
yeah. I just really liked the thing with, like I say, when the demons reveal like, oh no, that is the name they use for her, and it's like, ah yes, that lovely double meaning of like laying people to rest or putting people in their graves. And
Yeah,
the very big contextual difference there.
because they see her in a
So good.
completely different way, don't they?
Mm.
And that
She's
what
an absolute monster, but like going off the title alone, you would have assumed it was, you would assume the former like meaning of it, because she's seeing off all of her friends dying,
she's losing her friends, yeah, for
and
sure.
then nope, she's actually the one all the demons are terrified of, who kills them all. Um, and yeah, I loved the demon arc there. Um, I liked how, yeah, if you've been paying attention to how she's been training Fern, it all makes sense the moment the scales are revealed,
Yeah,
that mana control is how she is going to win that fight. And the fact that something that becomes significant later on as well, the fact about, like, again, always using like really simple magic and spells, nothing like too personalized or flashy. It's all just really basic spells for stuff. Um, it just really fleshes out her as a character and how she thinks and operates.
Yeah, no, I
You'll
think
see a lot more of that in one of the later arcs of this season.
I think like unlike I've praised like the like cartoons on this podcast before where they well it's just my brain. I like where they have like rules where you can kind of it puts in place the pieces so like certain plot turns don't feel
Mm.
unearned. I think Frieren's interesting because it doesn't explain the rules very explicitly or overtly,
Yeah,
but when
it's
they
not a fully hard magic system,
but
but it
but
has just enough rules.
exactly, yeah, and it doesn't feel when these things happen, they've offered enough breadcrumbs and it makes enough
It all
internal.
slots together, yeah.
It doesn't feel unearned or puts me off. Like it feels like right kind of thing.
It all follows from what's been established.
Yeah, and like certain things are just like kind of cool as well. Like the scales where they compare the scales of what how much mana they have. That's a really
Mm.
interesting, dramatic, tense concept. That
And
I
it
mean,
fits in really nicely with how they've established how the demons work, because their entire social structure is based on obviously displaying that you have more mana than anyone else.
yeah, and which you can draw lessons from, parallels from. I do think I was nervous when the demon subplot came into play because I thought, well, is it right to assert that they are just like this evil kind of thing, and it's giving like, is it going to become like a repeat of the adventure they've done before kind of thing? But then within an episode, I was totally on board just because the demons are such. The flashback is super interesting, but the demons are such like memorable characters, and
Hmm.
they're incredible, like they're brilliant villains basically, and you still have those interesting character moments, and like you learn more about the world, and it pulls it off. I think so. Like
Hmm.
I did actually really enjoy that sequence, even though it was kind of terrifying at the same time.
Like I like how like you have them, they're manipulative, but also they're a lot of it ties into the weaknesses of how they can be manipulated
Yeah,
into making mistakes, um, which Frieren knows all about because she's so experienced with them. And the others and the audience are supposed to not really know what she knows, and so, but it's not one of those things where where a character knows something and just has some knowledge necessary to win a fight. It all makes sense within the story.
yeah,
So,
exactly. I mean, the only other comment I had was like really randomly, nothing to do with what we've been discussing, Amy, but the dub. So I listened to the dubbed version, which I don't normally do. I normally sub.
oh, I've only seen the subbed.
Well, just to say, like, for various practical reasons, I watched the dub version, which is unusual for me, and actually the dub's really, really good, the English dub version. So it's just to give random praise for that. Like
Okay,
the
good,
voices
good.
feel right for the characters, and they have that kind of that light and darkness, and it just feels right. The performance is really good. So just as a random comment.
All
Um,
right, that's cool.
but yeah, I really can't wait to see what else happens in this. Like I keep watching as much as I can in my busy schedule. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Hmm.
So thank
Ah,
you.
now I might have to actually have a look at the dub. I occasionally like to go back and just see if there's any actors I recognize in dubs.
Yeah.
There's often some that you'll recognize from video games and stuff. I'm like, oh, interested to see how that actor's interpretation of this character sounds.
Oh, for sure. Like I spot that with lots of other anime and games. I didn't spot it with this one, but I'm sure there would be some kind of overlap for
Mm.
sure. But yeah, no, it's great.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it this much.
Well, that was a very good use of time travel then. Um, and yeah, we'll pull this to a close. If you have seen the show, I presume you have done if you're listening to the spoiler full section. Like, please let us know what you think. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Hmm.
And yeah, and keep following the Dreaming Machine. Watch out for the next time traveling escapades or our next episodes. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, and thank you everyone listening.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.